Welcome everyone to today's Rotary Club of the Park Cities meeting, and the first one of the year. I want to hope everyone had a great New Year and holidays, and we're so excited with our program today, but I'm going to call the meeting to order so everyone can stand. I'd like to have Mary Bishop come up here and do our invocation and pledge allegiance.
Happy New Year. It's good to see friends, fellow Rotarians, as we celebrate the new year. Let's give the glory to the Lord. Let's go in prayer. Father God, as we take a deep breath from our hurry and scurry, we think about you and your gifts to us. As we've received gifts, the greatest gift you've ever given to us. Thank you for life, for this world you created for us to enjoy. Father, we thank you for the many blessings we have. We thank you for those who are away from loved ones that might be lonely or lost, particularly those that we support through our Rotarians' generosity. We lift them up to you at this time, the many agencies and people that we serve. Father, thank you for this time and bless our food. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary, and yes, play ball. And now at this time, I'd like to do a request for Happy Bucks. Happy Bucks again at the time where we ask members to share in some celebrations of good things that are happening in their life in the community. Any Happy Bucks? Anyone? Here we go.
Hi, Happy New Year, everybody. It's good to see you all. Busy December. I missed you. I'm glad to be back. My only daughter, got engaged in Barcelona yesterday in Spain, and this mama is really excited to plan a wedding, so very good. Thanks.
Any others?
Okay, others?
Here we go.
I got it. Others?
Other Happy Bucks? Anyone? Oh, over here.
All right. Here you go, Ruth.
Thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm happy because I'm back after being gone for 8 or 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Any others? How about guests now? Who has guests? Introduce your guest, please.
Yes.
I'm happy to introduce my guest. Some of you have met him before. He's my oldest son, Sam, who's a sophomore now at A&M. and still home for a few more days.
Hey, Sam. Hi, Sam.
I brought my two biggest Rangers fans right here, Matthew, who is 11, and Christian, who is 14. Both go to South Lake Carroll.
Hey, guys. Yes?
Over here.
Hello, I'd like to introduce Alex Luna, an attorney with our law firm, a former Rotarian in the Woodlands, and give him a big round of applause, please.
All right, always one of my favorite meetings of the year. I've got three of my buddies from the higher softball team, Regan Smith, David Hoffman, and Brian Lowen. Regan's in private equity, David's a family law attorney, and Brian's commercial real estate / cold storage, whatever. CY, we still got a space on you for the team. Anytime you're ready, we're looking to bring the HP Cup back to higher this year and looking to compete. So good to see you. Thank you.
Hey, Daniel, you just insulted Brian. Brian and I used to work together. He's a good buddy of mine. And cold storage, that's not good.
It's a real pleasure for me to introduce Jim Reed. Jim is a lifer over at the Scottish Rite Hospital as a volunteer, and he's my guest today.
Sarah? Sarah's a good.
Please welcome Alden McCall. It's his first visit with us, and he's in oil and gas.
And I have a guest, Parker Pierce. He's one of my associates in my office, so welcome, Parker. And now I'd like to have Herb Hammond come up and speak to our foundation. Oh, one more. One more.
Hey everybody, I'm Rod Patton. I own Park Cities Lifestyle. I invited myself today. I appreciate all the camaraderie. This has been a great group and certainly enjoy it. Thank you.
Okay, well, we have 11 birthdays this month. For those of you who are here, please stand up when I call your name and be recognized. Anita Van Trees, Mark Kasher, Douglas Gill, Tom Rhodes. Tom, I know you're here. Sergio Poppe, Walt Markham, Daniel Drubensky, Cynthia Grazer, Paul McFarland, Jack Carpenter, and Richard Chaudhry. So you all have the opportunity, as you know, to contribute to the PC Foundation, and I hope that you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. And you know that Van's not here today. If he were, you may get a visitation from him to twist your arm for those donations, but little heads up there. And now I'd like to have Mark Neese come up and do our Marketplace Advertiser.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. In case you're wondering about the hat, I'm in desperate need of a haircut, which I'm getting this afternoon. But luckily, we had a baseball-themed meeting, so I wore a hat today. So at least it's Team Rotary, right? So I'm happy to announce our Marketplace Advertiser for this week, starting off the year. It is RLG Consulting, David Goodson, and I see Stuart is here today as well. So thank you very much for supporting the club and being a Marketplace Advertiser. RLG Consulting Engineers provides civil engineering, structural engineering, surveying, and forensic services to clients across Texas and the United States. Over the past 70 years, RLG has worked on numerous iconic DFW projects, such as North Park Center, where we are, the Dallas Arboretum, St. Mark's, Hockaday, Green Hill, as well as numerous projects for SMU, the Highland Park School District, Baylor Scott & White, and Texas Health Presbyterian Hospitals. Recent projects include the new sports complex at SMU's Ford Stadium, the administration building for Baylor Scott & White, the AT&T Discovery Plaza downtown, and renovations to SMU Cox's Business School, and the redevelopment of the old Weir's Furniture Store site into a new 12-story mixed-use office retail. RLG's staff includes over 30 professional engineers and surveyors, over 70 total employees, with offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Sherman, and Peoria, Illinois. Club members David Goodson retired after 38 years with the firm at the end of 2019 and was succeeded by CEO and former Rotary Club member Stuart Markison. And Stuart represents the third generation of Park City's Rotary leadership at the company that Ray Goodson Jr., a past president of the club, founded in 1953. So they have a long history of supporting our club and being involved in the community. So please join me in thanking RLG Consulting for being our marketplace advertiser. And I would like to remind everyone that the board this year has decided to prorate the marketplace advertising fee based on the quarter in which you sign up. So there are still spots available to be a marketplace advertiser if you're interested. You'll see on the back of your bulletin that all the current marketplace advertisers are represented there week in and week out. And we rotate through recognizing people from the podium. So if you're interested in promoting your business, we do have spots available, and it's a really good deal now because it's prorated because we're in the third quarter of the Rotary year. So come talk to me if you're interested in promoting your business to the club. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Now I'd like to call on, I want to recognize someone in our club. As you know, Greg Pape, into this. Greg always speaks to the foundation, and you know, it's critical for the life of Rotary to do things that we do around the world, and that's our foundation, which is, you know, in the billions of dollars. And there is a member of our club I want to recognize today, which is Kathy Allred. Kathy Allred is now in the Legacy Society Level 1, which is those members who commit over $1 million plus to the foundation through to the endowment, their estate planning and such. So I want to recognize Kathy. I know Kathy has a little foot surgery here recently, but so she's kind of in a little walking boot. But I'd like everyone to just please stand and recognize Kathy for her commitment to Rotary. A couple announcements before we get into our program, which I know we're all waiting to hear. But on the 27th of January, we're having our strategic planning meeting for this next year. So it starts at 9 o'clock to noon. And if those who are going to be participating or would like to, just please let us know. But that is something that's important for the health of our club, as we have 3-year plans which we put together and we implement, and which I think speaks to the success of our club. And then on March 29th, there'll be no meeting due to the Easter holiday recognition. So now we'll do the raffle drawing. And Sergio, if you can come up and get hopefully your winning ticket out, and you will see if you won. What's the pot right now? Do we know? $3.79. And again, the way it works is if your winning ticket, yeah, take that. And Chris will pull the winning ticket out. If your ticket is called, you have a chance to pull from this deck a card, and if it's the ace of spades, you win half the pot. And the winning number is, last 4 numbers are 2911. Anyone? Ah, Ruth. Woohoo! Yeah, I'll check the ticket. Got to audit this. Wait a minute. Oh, okay, she passes. Take a number. Oh, close. 2 clubs. Oh, you get to keep that. That's yours. That's your parting gift. Absolutely. Thank you, Ruth. And now I'd like to call up Eric Heidkamp to introduce our program today, but we're also looking forward to this. And
thank you, President Jeff. What a great time to be a Rangers fan. I remember, I'm dating myself very quickly. We moved to Texas in 1973 and been Rangers fans ever since. And I remember just a few years after that, jumping the wall at the old stadium, I call it, and getting an autograph from one of the players. I don't remember who, but from that time forward, I was hooked. And so I know there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of stories out there similar to mine. And so the Rangers have been such a great part of our life. And on behalf of our club, the Rotary Club Park Cities, congratulations on winning the 2023 World Series. Our MC today is a sideline reporter and anchor for Bally Sports Southwest, where she covers the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Mavericks. In 2023, she served as field reporter for approximately half of the Texas Rangers telecast on the field, and many more as host of the Rangers pre- and post-game coverage on Bally Sports Southwest. She hosted the playoff run as well as a World Series championship parade coverage in Arlington. She has contributed to the Rangers programming for the last 11 years and is also the courtside reporter on the Dallas Mavericks road broadcast. She has a game tonight. Previously, our MC was a courtside reporter and host for the Oklahoma City Thunder. She covered the team for 7 years, and during that time, she won 2 Emmy Awards for live sporting events as a part of the broadcast team on then Fox Sports Oklahoma. She has also covered the sidelines of Big 12 college football games. Other career stops include News 8 in Austin and KTXS in Abilene, where she started her career. Our MC also works for the Dallas-based Benchmark Title in a business development role in commercial real estate. She grew up in Lubbock, Texas. She is a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin with degrees in both broadcast journalism and theater. She now lives in Dallas. And her 3 children, she has 3 children, a son Hunter, who is 7, 2 daughters, Sullivan 4 and Harrison 2, and is a personal friend of many here in the club. Please help me welcome Lesley McCaslin.
Well, good. I like that I get to sit and introduce Chris because it's going to take me a minute. I was actually impressed as I was reading over his bio. I know a lot about Chris. Our kids both went to higher. We've known each other, obviously, through work. But goodness gracious, you've done a lot of things. Okay, so Chris joined the Texas Rangers as Executive Vice President and General Manager on December 4th of 2020. He took over the leadership of the entire baseball operations last August, though, which is kind of unbelievable because just over a year later, the entire Metroplex was celebrating the first World Series championship in 63 years of baseball. How you did that quickly? Well, we're going to ask you a lot of questions about it. But it all started right over there at Highland Park, where Chris was All-State in baseball and basketball, pitched 2 no-hitters the same year he won a state basketball title. He went on to Princeton, where he became the first Ivy League 2-sport Rookie of the Year. He was drafted in 2000, made his debut in 2004, and was named the Texas Rangers Rookie of the Year in 2005, leading the staff in starts, strikeouts, and ranking seconds in wins. Of course, Chris went on to play 13 seasons as a right-handed pitcher for 5 clubs, including Texas. His career was highlighted with an All-Star appearance and a World Series championship with Kansas City in 2015. And then fast forward to this year, which we will hear much more coming up. He hired Bruce Bochy, put a championship team together with an incredible pitching staff. Texas went on an unprecedented championship run, 11-0 on the road. I still can't believe it. Chris now lives here in Highland Park with his wife Liz and his 3 awesome kids, Catherine, Scott, and Grant. And now, not only because of his size, it's hard to go anywhere without recognizing him, but because of his World Championship Rangers, I don't think he'll ever buy a drink anywhere he goes in the Park Cities for the rest of his life. Please welcome my friend and GM, Chris Young. I requested that we sit. I'm just kidding, not really.
Thank you, Leslie. And thank you all for having me today. I'm really excited to be here, and And I think most importantly, just so excited to see people excited and happy and proud of the Rangers. To me, as someone who grew up in the community and was a lifelong Ranger fan, seeing how touched our community is in DFW and the state of Texas has been the best part of this whole experience. So I thank you all for your support and your patience as we work towards this, and I hope it's been as fulfilling for you all as it has for me. So thank you.
Definitely has, and it's just the beginning. Okay, so when I was thinking about where do we start, because we could start a long time ago with a couple, seasons of 100 losses. That was not very much fun. This year was. So let's start going into this year. I would say one of the biggest first moves you made was the hiring of Bruce Bochy. And to go get him out of his mini retirement, as we said, I want people to know the story kind of how you went to Nashville and how you made that happen. And what exactly did you say to Bruce to make him come coach a team that had lost 100 games?
Yeah, well, it started last August, a year ago August, where we decided we needed a change in leadership in the dugout. And it's a very hard decision to make. Obviously, we're invested in our team, our coaching staff, and just felt like we needed a new voice to take us to where we wanted to go. And I, as a player, had the opportunity to play for Bruce Bochy in San Diego. When I was traded from the Rangers to the Padres in 2006, Bruce was the manager in San Diego. And I had 1 year playing for him, and it was a great year. I was a young player. I was intimidated by him. He was a big guy. I mean, I'm a big guy, but I thought Boch was larger than life for me. And he had this great humility to him. He had a competitive desire and a passion, but a humility, and was very respectful and just created a great environment. And after that season, we had a playoff season that year, and Boch left the Padres and went up to San Francisco, where he went on to win 3 world championships. After the 2019 season, he retired and was out of the game for 3 years. And as we really identified the criteria of what we felt like we needed in our next manager, it became very apparent that Bruce Bochy fit all of our criteria. And in fact, I look back on it and think that perhaps we sort of framed the criteria around Bruce Bochy, not the opposite. But anyway, at that point, as soon as the season ended, I picked up the phone, I called Boch and said, we had stayed in touch over the years, and I said, hey, I don't know what your appetite is to get back in the game, but we're looking for a manager. You and I have a pre-existing relationship. I'd love just to come have a conversation with you. And he said, CY, let me talk to my wife. I certainly miss the game, but I'm also happy in my retirement, and it's a family decision. I need to talk to my wife, but I'll give you a call in a couple weeks and we can think about it. So I waited for a couple weeks, and then finally he reached out and said, I've thought about it and I'd love to have a conversation with you. And at that point I said, well, I can be there tomorrow if you want. So I flew up that week to Nashville and met him at his house. I think it was 10 in the morning, and stayed 7 hours. And we just chatted and talked baseball. We talked life. We laughed and traded stories and shared experiences over the course of our careers. And what we found at the end of that conversation, certainly I felt it, I don't want to speak for Boch, but I think he did as well, was that there was an alignment, and that our vision of what baseball, what a team should look like, what a culture should look like, how an organization should be built, how the front office and the coaching staff get along and work together. It was just very, very compatible, and it was very, it was a perfect match, really. And so we left that conversation, and I flew home. I felt like I had overstayed my welcome. I was a little worried about that, but his wife didn't kick me out. But I flew home that evening, and I knew, okay, there may be some momentum here. And so I said, Boch, let's touch base in a couple days. And a few days later, he said, I'd like to proceed with this. And so that's kind of how it all came together. And it was not a lengthy process. It was not an elaborate interview, month-long conversation with multiple candidates. We kind of had our target. We knew our guy. We went and got him. And now looking back, it's probably the best decision I've ever made. Certainly we see what it's led to with the organization, but he is such a wonderful leader, such a wonderful person. He makes me better every day. He puts up with my imperfections, and I couldn't be more grateful to work with and partner with somebody who is one of the best of all time. So it's been wonderful.
I totally agree. It's really fun to watch him work. He garners so much respect from the players. He is always cool, calm, and collected. if we give him, a couple minutes right after the game till we have to interview him. But he really does. I mean, he just is always the same no matter what, and y'all needed that this season. I mean, we can talk about the World Series championship all we want, but it was a long 162-plus game season, and there were lots of ups and downs. You put together this incredible team, and there was injury after injury after injury. So I just want to give them some insight into the highs and lows of what this year was about, signing Max Scherzer, then going through so many injuries, and what that was like for as a GM to keep this team together.
Yeah, it's, as you go into the season, we had the last couple years been very active in free agency. And first, Lesley, you referenced sort of the timeline in terms of taking over the franchise and where we are. The success of the franchise and the foundation was laid, for years. I mean, this was pre-existed my arrival here. It was our ownership. It was my predecessor, John Daniels. It was a collective effort, and I think that's really important to understand because it doesn't just come together like that. But when the right pieces are in place, it can come together very quickly. And we had a very solid foundation, but there were finishing touches that needed to be made. And, as you go into the season, I felt like we were we had a lot of talent. We felt like we were as talented as most teams, maybe not proven as much as other teams, but we had a high level of talent. And the expectation was that we were no longer going to lose. I didn't want to be as bold as to say we were going to win the World Series, but I felt like with the talent we had, if everything kind of went well, that we would be in a position to compete. And once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. And that's where, you get hot for the right month and you can win a championship. And that's kind of what happened to this team. And we had a young group. We had the right veteran players. But I think most importantly, we had the right group of guys and the right culture. And as we got into the season, we got off to a tremendous start. I think we raced out to a 40-20 start over our first 60 games, and we were one of the best teams in baseball. Our run differential, which was the runs we scored as compared to the runs we allowed, was I think the top or second in baseball. And so we knew at that point, this is a really good team, and the only thing that could really get in the way of us continuing over the next 4 months and becoming a playoff team was injuries. And we knew at some point we would sustain some injuries and hopefully withstand those injuries, but it was my job and the front office's job to try to shore up the team, and we did that through the trade deadline. The team kind of went through a little spell where we didn't play as well going into the deadline. Then we had a great stretch at the beginning of August, and then we really got hit hard with injuries. We lost Jonah Heim, our starting catcher. We lost Josh Young, our starting third baseman. We lost Corey Seager, starting shortstop. We lost Nathan Eovaldi, who ended up being one of our World Series heroes. And then at the end of the year,
was crazy.
Yeah, and then we lost. We lost 5 of our 6 All-Stars, and then 1 Hall of Famer in Max Scherzer in the second half. So, that's hard for any team to withstand. But we put ourselves in a really good position. But it felt like we had lost momentum at the end and kind of limped to the finish line. I think what we felt internally was that we were hanging on and we were about to get our group together again. And once we did, we felt like we're as good as anybody. And that's exactly how it played out. We got everybody healthy at the right time, and then we got back and showed that we were the best team in baseball. And that's what baseball is. It's full of ups and downs, highs and lows. And we try to assemble a roster not just 26 players deep, but 40 players plus deep, because you're going to go through injuries and you're going to need contributions from guys that you're not expecting, from unsung heroes. And that's exactly what we got. But ultimately, what put us in position to do all that was the collective group of guys and the culture and the bond that this group had, which to me is probably the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah, they are a great group of guys. I was just telling someone this earlier that there's not, I won't say a bad apple, but they are the nicest group of guys. There's not anyone you mind interviewing, and I know that that was intentional on your part. It is kind of crazy. They started out as the best offense maybe ever in Major League Baseball going into the All-Star break. Then they come out, and we were both on the road trip in Cleveland. I think we had lost 14 of 16 in a row. And I looked at Chris and said, Chris, you know if we just make the playoffs, it's a win, right? Like, we lost almost 100 games last year. We lost over 100 games the last year. Like, I'm not trying to be, negative. I'm just saying if we make the playoffs, like, that is a huge win. And he goes, yeah, Lesley, we're going to win it all. And I was like, okay. And he did. He says he did. He believed it the entire time. And I think that, too, was such a testament to you and how the team responded, because even in those deepest downs, like the final weekend in Seattle before the playoffs, as we get to the playoffs, when you lose and you don't end up winning the pennant, and you're sitting there going, okay, now we got to fly all the way to Tampa Bay to start the playoffs. I heard that was a very, very long 6-hour plane ride. But in that time, what happened? Something changed between that last road game and the playoffs.
Yeah, we kind of looked at our schedule over the course of the year. We knew we were going to have a really tough last 7 games. Our last 7 games of the season, we had 3 in Anaheim and then 4 in Seattle. Seattle had made the playoffs the year before, so we knew that they were going to be really good, and likely it was going to come down to the last weekend. What we didn't understand was kind of how we'd get to that point, as you referenced, that we'd have this great start and then sort of limp to the finish line. But we went into Seattle the last 4 games. We needed to win 1, maybe 2 games. We also needed a little help from Arizona. They were playing the Astros. If they won 1 game against the Astros, we would clinch the division and have home field advantage the entire playoffs. That was something we felt like was very important. We had played well at home all year. And frankly, we had been on the road for the last 8 or 9 days. We wanted to come home, and everyone wanted to see their families and kind of rest before the playoffs. Instead, we went into Seattle, and we barely won 1 of the 4 games there. Seattle played to win. I give them a lot of credit. They were eliminated, I think, the second day, but they still came out and played to win. Houston went into Arizona, and Arizona kind of took it easy on them, and Houston swept Arizona, and we ended up tying for the division, and Houston owned the tiebreaker via our regular season head-to-head matchup. So Houston won the division, got home field advantage, and in turn, we had to fly from Seattle all the way to Tampa, and it was tough for everybody to swallow. We were proud that we had made the playoffs, but really over the course of the season, our goals had sort of been recalibrated because making the playoffs was not good enough for us anymore. We wanted to win a championship and felt like we were good enough to do so, and now we had made it hard on ourselves. But, you know, as I reflect back on that, I think that's exactly what our team needed to go through, to go through that adversity and to come together and then come out of that. To build the confidence to win the championship. And on that flight to Tampa, I think everybody realized, well, it is what it is at this point, and we're going to have to do it the hard way, but nobody was afraid of it. Nobody was scared of it. And when we landed in Tampa, you felt an energy and a positivity to the group, and things just kind of took off from there. We won 2 games in Tampa, and the rest is kind of history.
It is kind of crazy. Didn't win the division. Don't get to go home. That road trip lasted like, what, 2 weeks or so? When they started the playoffs, it was forever. I was here in studio hosting the post-game shows. And all of a sudden, they got lightning in a bottle. And it really is. I will never go through a baseball season again and count anybody out until the very last day. Because a team that had played so bad all of a sudden was the best team in baseball and won 11 games on the road. Highlight for me personally was watching them beat the Astros in those last 2 games of that series. I think everybody felt like after that, well, we beat the Astros, so like it almost can't get better, but then it got better. What was, I mean, other than obviously winning it all, was there a moment during the playoffs that you're like, that was the best time for me?
You know, Lesley, there's so many moments that stand out to me, but as I really think about the big moments for the organization and really the way history will reflect back on this team, I think exactly what you referenced, beating our in-state arch rival and really nemesis over the last 7 years, an organization that has really beaten up on the Rangers and did so through the regular season. And finally, I felt like our group had enough, and we felt like Houston's time was over and this was our time. And it was a really strange series. It was a 7-game series where we won the first 2 games in Houston. We came home feeling great. If we can win 1, maybe 2 games at home, we clinch at home and then can rest for the World Series. And instead, Houston won 3 games in Arlington and beat us and took the lead going back to Houston. So it felt like they had all the momentum, and especially after a Game 5 heartbreaking loss where we had a 9th inning lead and gave up a 3-run homer for them to win the game.
Jose Altuve.
And then again, same thing. This team had such resilience and character, and when things were, you know, at their lowest points or their toughest moments, that's when this team really came together and was at their best. And I think that was exhibited in going down to Houston and not just winning, but winning convincingly in Game 6 and 7, and kind of making a statement that this is our time.
I have no concept of time, so you can, you know, you want to tell me when to, okay. Because obviously winning a World Series was amazing. The parade was insane. They thought maybe 250,000 people, ended up having about 750,000 people out there. To see that many people celebrating the Rangers and celebrating that this finally happened for what, one of 3 organizations that had never won a championship?
We were one of 6. Yeah.
One of 6. It was phenomenal to see the whole, not just city, but Metroplex, everybody to come together to celebrate the Rangers. Has it hit you? Like still now, like a few months later, like has it sunk in?
It hasn't really. I think one of the things my wife used to say when I was a player, I never took time to enjoy the moment, and I was always worried about what's next. And I think that sort of holds true here, is that really, you know, three days after the World Series or 2 days after the parade, it was right back to work, and free agency started, and trades and conversations with other clubs. And so there was really not a period of time to sit back and reflect and celebrate to the extent that maybe you would expect when winning something so wonderful. But nonetheless, the times it sinks in is when I'm out in the community and fans everywhere I go come up and say thank you and how much it means, or share a personal story about their experience watching Game 5 or the Houston series or whatever it was that was so touching to them. And to me, that, as I said, that's been the best part. And when I hear those stories and when I see the pride in people's faces, that's when I say we did this, and now it motivates me to do it again.
Yeah, and I know, Chris, one is not enough. This is the beginning. But obviously, it's going to be a challenge. So talk about what's going on this offseason and how do you foresee going into 2024? You know already, Scherzer had back surgery, and Jacob's not coming back for a little while. What is this group capable of?
Yeah, well, I think I'd start with the last 2 years. We were obviously very active in free agency, and we had a lot of holes to fill. And so we had, our ownership gave us financial resources to fill a lot of those holes, and we had a strong farm system. And as we go into this year, we actually have the core team in place, which is really exciting. And so I think that it's important to recognize that as we go around the diamond, we have an all-star catcher, a silver slugger and gold glove first baseman, MVP candidate at second, MVP candidate at short, a rookie of the year candidate, an all-star at third. We have a all-star World Series hero in Adolis Garcia in right field, a young center fielder in Leody Taveras, who is gold glove potential and all-star potential, and then Evan Carter, who came up in the playoffs last year. I mean, the core of our team is in place. This is going to be a very, very good team. On the pitching staff, it's the same. We have a lot of veterans returning, and really the core of the pitching staff. And I think as we look at this offseason, it's about kind of filling in some holes here and there, and complementing what we have. And I'm really excited about the group we have. The first half of the season, we are going to be a little thin on the pitching staff. We're still open-minded to trying to add the right players to help our rotation. But as we get into the second half, our expectation is that we'll have Jacob deGrom coming back, that we signed a pitcher who's a young pitcher coming back from Tommy John surgery named Tyler Malley, who's been a very, very good pitcher. We'll have him in the second half. We'll have Max Scherzer returning to go with the group we have. I'm very, very excited about the team. I'm excited about the depth of the roster. I'm excited about some of the young guys in the system who I think will make their way to Arlington this year. And it's been quiet for the most part, but I think underneath we feel very good about the group we have, and we're excited to try to run this back.
Yeah, and the one thing that you guys have now that you really didn't have last year, most of the guys didn't except for Corey Seager, is experience. And that is huge in the playoffs. So here we come, Houston. Okay. Am I good? You want to open it up? Can I? Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so then let's talk a little bit more about 2024 then, as we look ahead. I think one of your biggest signings last year was Jordan Montgomery at the trade deadline. Nobody really knew very much about him, and he was huge in the playoffs. When you see a guy like that, how did you know? How did you know, and your staff, that this could be a key piece, not only going forward to the end of the year, but for this season as well?
Yeah, as background for those of you that didn't quite follow the trade deadline, at the deadline last year, which was July 31st, so basically 4 months into the season, we acquired 2 starting pitchers that became very important for our second half of the season and playoff push. One, Max Scherzer, who's a Hall of Famer from the New York Mets, and then the second was Jordan Montgomery from the St. Louis Cardinals. And really, as you get into the deadline and the weeks leading up to it, it's there's a ton of work that goes into it by so many people in the organization. And we had the luxury this year of knowing, based on the way the team had played, that we were going to be buyers instead of sellers, which is a great position to be in. My first 2 years on the job, we were selling at the deadline, and it's no fun, and you're grumpy, and the team stinks. And so this year was quite different in terms of the excitement, the energy around buying instead of selling. But as we got into July, we recognized that we were thin at the starting pitching, and that was going to be the key to our second half run. And so we targeted very early the starting pitching market. We tried to assess. We had conversations with every single club to understand what their needs were and who may be available. And then from there, tried to really hone in on our top targets, and Max and Jordan were at the top of that list. It just so happened that we read the market correctly and recognized that some of the other players that were out there were not going to become available, and we acted really kind of on the earlier end of the deadline and acquired Max and then Jordan Montgomery. Max obviously pitched great until he got hurt just before the playoffs, and then came back in the playoffs. And Jordan was our one of our heroes in the World Series. He's a Texas legend now with the way he pitched and the way he performed. And it was just really, really neat to see somebody who rose to the level he did at the time that mattered most. And that's what champions do. And Jordan is forever going to be a Texas Ranger legend because of that.
And it's funny that I haven't even mentioned yet Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, which were basically the two pillars of where this team started. And they're going to be here for a while. And those are your leaders. And those two guys are incredible and very different. But what did you see in those two that you knew when you guys signed them that these are the ones that need to lead the way for us?
Yeah, so the Corey and Marcus signings go back to the offseason of 2021, going into the 22 season. And we were coming off a 100-loss season. It was really a low point, and I had just come on, it was my first year on the job, and we knew we had financial flexibility. We knew that we had money to spend in free agency, and there was a very, very strong free agent class, but it was going to be important for us to really pick the right free agents. And we felt like within our farm system, we have real talent on the way, but they need the right pillars around them to show them and set an expectation, a winning mindset, a winning culture, a winning expectation, and show these young guys what it looks like. There are different ways that organizations rebuild, and we felt like ours could be accelerated through free agency by getting the right veteran players. We did a ton of homework, a ton of research, and really dialed in on Marcus and Corey at two very important positions, shortstop and second base, which in baseball you want to be very strong up the middle, catcher, shortstop, second base, center field. And so to have those two guys come in and kind of be the core group to build around, it could not have worked out any better. And now as we look up, a lot of free agent signings don't go as well as these have. And in time, there may be some challenges down the road. But right now, we've won a World Series, and we've changed the culture and the mentality and the standards of this franchise, in part because of Corey and Marcus and what they've brought to our organization. And, I really commend them. It's a time, there was a financial component to their decision, but these two players bought into our vision. They bought into what we were building, and they believed that, hey, I'm not afraid of losing. I'm not afraid of the 100 losses that your team has been through. I'm a competitor, and I believe that this can be built the right way. And sure enough, they chose to be Texas Rangers, and it just seeing those two hug when we made the final out, it makes me so happy for them, especially because they were two of the first ones that really believed in what we were doing, and they got rewarded for it.
Well, and Corey had won with the Dodgers, but that was the COVID year. Everything seemed so weird. So, even though he had won, I'm sure that this one felt even more important because you played an entire season in front of all of the fans. This was an even more special. And I don't know if you'll know this about Marcus Semien, but the guy literally will not take a game off. He will be mad if you pull him out of the lineup. He never wants a day off. 162 games, not even counting the playoffs. It's a lot. It's a lot of baseball. But I will say, to your credit too, Chris, these guys have said this during the year, when you're coming to play for someone that's also played, it's huge. Because Chris understands the game and he knows what he's doing. And when you have Bruce Bochy, who's won, and Chris, who's also won, that was a big reason these players wanted to come to the Rangers too.
Well, I don't want to speak for them, Lesley, but I certainly have a player's perspective, and I appreciate how hard this game is. I appreciate the sacrifices and the challenges that these guys go through on a daily basis. And every decision that I make, that we make as an organization, has the players in mind. I always say this is a front office. Our job is to get the best out of these guys and give them every possible resource we can to be successful. And in turn, their job is to meet us halfway and utilize those resources. And it's a partnership. And you know, this game is and always will be about the players. And that's the mentality that we approach it with. And I think they feel that. I hope they feel that. There are times where it's hard, and you know, there are business decisions that have to be made. But for the most part, I think these guys know that we care about them. We want to help them realize their dreams. And in turn, they've given us just the most wonderful gift of a World Series championship.
A year that will never be topped unless we win it again.
And really quickly, quick anecdote on Marcus. This is so funny. The morning after we won the World Series, we were in Arizona, and we were staying at the Biltmore Hotel, and we had this big ballroom similar to this, where we had a breakfast set up, and the team could just come through with their families and grab breakfast at their convenience. And Bruce Bochy and I and our families were sitting at a table and enjoying breakfast that morning and just smiling and laughing. And all of a sudden, Marcus comes up and he says, "Hey, I got to talk to you guys." And we kind of looked at him, and he said, "Need to start thinking about how to train for spring training." And he was dead serious. And I share that to give you the mentality of Marcus Semien. I mean, he won the World Series the night before, and he's already thinking about what he needs to do differently in his offseason to prepare for 2024. It just speaks to a championship mindset, and I couldn't be happier for him and Corey and everybody else who got to experience this. That's what this group is about.
All right. Do we have questions? Yes. You want to take it? They don't want to ask me.
I'll start at this side.
Thank you, Eric. Hey, Lesley. All right, so let's talk about free agency a little bit. So obviously it's a bit of a chess game, or I should say a poker game, and Dodgers are all in. You know, forget the luxury tax. We'll do whatever we need to do. How do you contend with that when you're? What are the behind the scenes with a guy like Ohtani? How does that go down? You guys obviously made a decision pretty quickly. We're not going to match what they're trying to do. So how does that process go through, and how does that kind of resonate through the rest of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, not specific to any one free agent. Obviously, that was sort of a once-in-a-lifetime free agency, at least to this point in baseball history. But I think in general, I really don't get caught up or consumed with what other teams do. I focus on what the needs of the Texas Rangers are and really what our core values are in terms of building a team. And I think that's exactly what we've done in a very disciplined way to help put the right group of guys on the field. I always say, and this is based on my experiences, my athletic experiences through high school, into college, the minor leagues, as a player in the major leagues, and now as an executive within the game, is that it's not always the most talent that wins, it's the right talent that wins. And we're very selective in who that right talent is. And I think that finding players that are fits for our organization, both as a person and as a player, is the important part of it. And I think that's where Boch and I were completely aligned. So as we talk about free agency in general, I think it really comes down to identifying the players that fit our culture, that we believe make our team better, and then selling them on our vision and seeing if we're aligned in terms of the financial aspect of that. And I'll be very candid that there have been a number of players that have turned down more lucrative contracts to come to this environment. And in fact, every day my phone is ringing with agents. I was on the phone before I walked in here with an agent telling me how badly two of his players want to be here. And so that's actually, 2 years ago, I'm not sure I could say that. And now we're in a much different situation. And, ultimately, we want players that want to be here, that fit our culture, and I'm not consumed with what other teams are doing. I'm focused on what we need to do because I believe our group is as good as any team in baseball, and if we stay healthy, we'll be right there competing again.
Kind of along that same note, at the end of this month, when Highland Park High School retires your number and Clayton's number, are you going to have any conversations with Clayton while y'all are sitting up there?
Well, first of all, Clayton is a good friend and someone I respect immensely. And I'll say this, it's really humbling to have your jersey retired along with Clayton Kershaw. So I'm really honored by that. And but I don't speak to specific free agents. It's just one of my policies as we go through the off season. But nonetheless, Clayton's a champion. He's a Hall of Famer. I think any team in baseball would love to have him, and certainly, you know, we will continue those conversations.
Chris, you spoke to the culture. It's clear to all the fans, I know to myself, that watching the team, it looked like you were dealing with a team that was comprised of a Boy Scout troop of all Eagle Scouts compared to like the Dirty Dozen or something. They all seem to be just great people, but there's so many great stories, but Evan Carter, to me, coming into the season late, a 20-year-old kid, just turned 21, and this all shucks, the persona that he has, and then his hitting was just ridiculous. Everything about him. Speak to that more if you could, because that's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, Evan really is. He's a true win for our scouting and player development system. And you know, I was not here when the team drafted Evan. Evan was drafted in 2020, which was the COVID draft, and it was a very unique draft. Most drafts are 20 rounds. The COVID draft, they shortened to 5 rounds, mainly because the industry didn't have time to scout before everything closed down. So they shortened the draft to 5 rounds, and Evan was someone that our scouting group had identified very early in the process as somebody that may be kind of a sleeper breakout player. He's from a small town, Johnson City, Tennessee, and really didn't have a lot of exposure. So there weren't a lot of scouts that knew about him, but the Ranger guys were on him, and our scouting group, to their credit, believed in him, and they took a risk in drafting Evan in the 2nd round. And in fact, that night, some of the analysts on MLB Network really criticized the Rangers pretty heavily for the draft pick because they had never heard of Evan Carter. And so to see Evan have the success he had coming up and then through the World Series, I think it just really justified what a tremendous job our scouting department did. I think the critical thing to understand about Evan is who the person is. And I think that Evan is 21 years old. He had signed to go to Duke, to play baseball at Duke, declined that to sign with the Rangers, and then worked his way up through the minor leagues and has had success at every level, but he's still, you know, he had just turned 21 years old, and he's competing in the biggest moments on the biggest stage, and he's making it look easy. I mean, I think it just speaks to Evan's character and his mindset. And Evan is as humble and down to earth as it gets. He did not get fazed by the attention, by the environment, by the challenges, by the highs, by the lows. He just stayed the same, and he came up and said, I'm going to play my game and be me. And that's exactly what he did. And I think it's why we as an organization are so excited about him, and why he's going to have such a great career ahead of him. And we're certainly, and as I look back, we called up Evan, I think the 2nd week of September, and our scouts have been telling me for a little while, Evan's ready, and the team was playing really poorly at the time, and we had a number of injuries, and I just felt like it was going to be a lot to put on Evan Carter. If we call up Evan Carter, our fan base is going to think like Evan's the savior and the hero's here, and I was really worried about the pressure it was going to put on Evan, and I couldn't have been more wrong. And it just shows you that you know, we don't always know what we're doing, but when you believe in the person and you have the right mentality, that these guys can accomplish special things. And Evan is as mature as any 21-year-old I've ever been around, and you know, he's going to have a great career.
I was just going to add, because I think it's so funny. His town, and from where he's from in Tennessee, has 10,000 people. So when he started in the playoffs, he is playing in crowds that are 3 times as much, and he is very aw shucks. Like, this just doesn't faze me. And I think hindsight's 20/20. I know y'all were probably nervous about pulling up Evan Carter. Adolis Garcia got hurt. If Adolis Garcia doesn't get hurt, we would have never seen Evan Carter. So, like, it is that silver lining stuff that you go back and think, well, if this hadn't happened, this hadn't, you know, then he wouldn't have been here. It was so much fun to watch.
Chrissy and Lesley, we want to thank you guys for coming to our club. We really appreciate it. You had mentioned that the manager, Bruce, is a very calm guy. He's not somebody that jumps up and down and screams. I'm real curious, when you guys went back to Houston down 3-2, what did he say to the players before they took the field?
You know, he didn't say anything. There was no team speech. There was no you know, rah-rah moment that galvanized the group. Baseball is somewhat stoic like that, where you really don't, you have individual you have an offensive team meeting and a pitching team meeting, but you don't have group meetings very often. In fact, the only time the manager really speaks to the group is before the start of spring training, and then maybe once or twice during the season when things aren't going well. So, and I think that speaks to Boach, is that he didn't change a thing. He didn't panic. He didn't call a team meeting. He just stayed right here. And, you know, he had individual conversations with guys. He went around, had a smile on his face, maintained his confidence, and he's been through it. He knew that this is baseball, and you know, this group has the resilience to respond to it. We had already won 2 games in Houston, and hey, we had made it hard on ourselves, but there's no reason that we can't go back and win 2 more. So we also liked our pitching matchups. We liked the guys we had going in Jordan Montgomery and Nate Evaldi in those 2 games. And so we felt like with those 2 guys on the mound and a great offense, like, let's take our chances. And so, but Boach he's phenomenal like that. But I want to say, too, he's highly competitive. I mean, Lesley referenced the media needing a moment before they come in post-game. There have been some moments where I go in there post-game, and he is, you know, his glasses are on the floor, and his hat's in the corner, and his, yeah. Yeah, he may throw a chair from time to time. I mean, he's highly competitive, but he only does that behind closed doors. And when the players see him, or when, you know, the public sees him, he's right here. And I think everybody feeds off that. And with the highs and lows of a baseball season, you have to have that calm, steady presence, and he provides that. He's just masterful in the way he does it. And he brings everybody in, makes everybody feel special and a part of that. That's one of the remarkable things. His staff loves him. In fact, I asked the staff at one point, I said, I've heard Boach is really demanding on you guys. Can you explain that? Is that true? And it was hard for me to believe it. And they kind of each broke down the percentage of Boach's ire that they each receive. And they said, you know, our catching coach gets about 80% of it, our bench coach gets about 10% of it, our infield coach 5%, and they broke it all down. It was really funny to hear their perspective. And I said, well, are you guys okay with it? And they said, are you kidding me? We love him. So that's how everybody feels about him.
Okay, time for one more? One more, maybe the last question. Lesley and Chris, thank you both again for being here. We really appreciate it. And on behalf of all of us here in our club, I think we've begun a tradition, right? So we're expecting you to come back next January, hopefully, with a similar presentation. We'll put that on our calendar. I'm curious about the leadership mindset. So last year to this year, right? The coaching, the leadership, Boach, you in the dugout and so on. Do you have a different mindset, a different approach, a different language, or is it the same as what you used last year? Last year, it was who are the Rangers. This year, you're the team to beat.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I haven't thought too much in terms of changing anything dramatically in terms of our identity. I mean, I'm very comfortable with who we are as an organization, what we stand for, the way our team is built, the talent we have, and the way we're going to go do it. It may not be the flashiest, it may not make the most headlines, but it's substantive, and I think that that's what our group feels, and I think people that are like-minded in that recognize that and want to be part of it. And so that to me is, you know, I'm very secure in who we are, and I do think, and Lesley referenced this earlier, that there is an experience now, and I do know from my previous experience as a player that once you've won, you take the field with a mentality knowing we're good, and we expect to win. We're not hoping to win. We expect to win. We are going to win. And I'm really excited to see that for our young guys. And every young player that comes up through our organization and reaches the big leagues this year is going to walk on that field knowing what the expectation is. And it's no longer mediocrity. It's the standard has changed. Marcus Semien said it at his World Series speech. This is the new standard here. And that was the goal when I came here, and I'm so happy that we've achieved that. And now for us moving forward, success will be defined by how we sustain that. So, but in terms of changing anything, I don't foresee that. We are who we are, and we're going to keep doing it our way. Good. Yeah. Good.
One last question, anyone? Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up. Anyone? Okay, one last question.
Would you be World Series champions if it weren't for air conditioning in Arlington?
Well, you know, I think if I were to say No, we wouldn't. It would be a disservice to our players. And I think our players can win in any environment that you put them in. I love our guys. I believe in our guys. And I think that they would respond to any challenge. So I would say I don't think the AC is the reason that our team won. I think it's our players. So, yeah, but good question.
Chris, Lesley, we truly appreciate y'all being here. And again, as Jeff kind of alluded to, we can book you for next year to have you
Mark
come
it
back.
down.
Absolutely. We appreciate y'all being here again. And a book will be put at McShane Elementary in honor of y'all coming here today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. Yeah, Happy New Year.
And just a little housekeeping. Next week, Jeff Brady will be chair of the day with a guest, with Craig Davis. And then I'd like to have Mr. Heitkamp come here and do the four-way test. This one.
Yeah, you're good.
The four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerns? Third, will it be goodwill to better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
You did a great job. You told me not to hit the bell that hard, so I hit it.
Well, you got to hit.
I know.
Everybody does the same thing.
I didn't realize I was going to hit.
I told Chris, I go, he's a baseball player, for goodness sake. Hit that.
Well, I wasn't expecting it to be so hard.
Are you going to take a picture?
I want a picture with just me, too.